Hello everyone, good morning, and thank you for joining us in another one of our Anything app webinars. Today the planned topics include a summary of what happened during our APP 2016 conference workshop webinar just a few weeks ago. And then we're going to talk about our plans, get a sense of what our plans are for next year. And we define our years from one app conference to the next. And then our third topic is really our open precog groups. We are growing, as you'll see, and I think it's important for us now to train and bring more group managers in, as well as some of the existing groups are looking for new people. So that's what that topic will be about. And then anything else you'd like to discuss. So let's begin with the first topic, which was APP 2016, which was really a lot of fun, and I think a great success. The theme was consciousness is fundamental, and that's what we spent basically our whole time on, was trying to be more conscious with the focus on precognition and health, wealth, and wisdom. So we used ARV, of course, but the connection between consciousness, precognition, and ARV, I tried to set the tone here by indicating that at least I believe that ARV demonstrates perhaps better than any other way how the future and past are entangled, and entangled in a very personal way, and that the workshop was all about the individuals there. We did sports predictions, and we also did horse racing prediction, which is kind of a sports prediction. But all of this is to get people to really get that they're beings connected to their own future, that this moment is a combination of the past and the future all coming together in the now. It's actually quite heavy. But people, I think, really get that being in this general area of precognition. Now, the overview, basically, where we had terrific speakers, and we had 8 tables set up for doing 8 sporting events. We did 10 per day. 7 were in Major League Baseball, and then there was 1 horse race, and they were just all a lot of fun. And then we also had webinar participants, so they basically formed the 9th table, if you will. This is the agenda, which I know you probably can't read, but you know, Joe spoke a couple of times. We had some of our own people speak, Deborah Scott, John Herlosky, Angela, Nancy, and Shane. And then the webinar speakers, so some of these were recorded as well. And all of this is now, Shane put all of this up, sent out an email yesterday, so you can get copies of most of these talks. But Joe gave a talk on missing people, John Peterson gave a talk, Ed did, Dean Radin, Jeff Mishloff, and then I gave a talk. Everybody was there except Dean and John. Their talks were webinar only. Let's just, you know, this is just a brief summary, of course, of what happened, but having all the tables, this is the way the various tables did, and this is not as good as we're used to. Usually at webinars like this, which were generally much smaller, we had 80 people here. Usually we're like 25 or 30 people in New Orleans, which was a different venue. I think we had like 35 or 40 people, but this was a jump to a new environment. We also had the table split 4 and 4. Some said, and perhaps it was true, it was a little complicated, caused a little chaos. But for whatever reason, these are the numbers. 2 tables, of course, did very well at 100%, and 2 tables did not so well. The overall, percentages of all the tables were 55%. I always make group predictions for the record, and those turned out to be at this level of like 56%. So I don't know, for reasons which I am still working on improving, when we get lots of people, it seems to be down at this level. But the individual people are not as important as in my opinion, and I know I will be talking about this a little bit more in the future, as the personal experience. And yet it makes good sense to organize ourselves into groups, for social reasons and just the logistics of doing things. And so that's our approach in app. And since last app to this app, these are the various groups we have going. And these are the hit rates and odds versus chance of getting this kind of record for 1 year. And you can see Scott's group, and he, as you'll see later, is looking for additional people. His group has done extraordinarily well, a 90% hit rate since last year, with 19 hits and 2 misses, 31 passes, and 9,000 to 1 odds. And then here are the other groups. It turns out, and I happen to be the manager of this group, Carve, but this group now has 100 people in it. It's been a large group. It's gone through many kind of transitions, started out being somewhat different than it is now. But as I say, all the group managers are working to get their hit rates up, and for various reasons, most of which are still mysterious, they might not do as well as they'd like, and they're working on doing better. But I will say even some of the groups who overall aren't doing well have within them excellent viewers which have become a part of APPI, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And again, that is the whole point, is it's the personal growth and your personal hit rate, which all the group managers are required to keep track of. So each of the group managers have different styles, and there are different protocols here. Some use this winning entanglement approach. Others use different approach. Others are into dream, but not all of these groups are open, and we'll talk about that a little later. Now, if you go way back to 2003, these are the overall stats. During 2003 and 2004, and this is pre-app, this was PIA, Physics Intuition Application Days, we were really trying to see on our own if this was real, if we can organize ourselves in a way which would, in fact, prove at a practical level, which includes wagering, includes keeping all the stats, includes having the people be in groups but encourage them to do on their own. That was at 61% with these kind of odds. But then you can see all of the various years, including this last year, which was at 57%. Overall, this is now the level. And there you are. There are the stats. So it turns out, just simply because the way statistics work, even if you have a relatively small edge over chance, though 7% by many is not considered relatively small, but we, we're really interested in getting up to the 65% and above and we're looking for 80%, and some of our people are up at that level. Remember, so this is the average, but nevertheless, last year we were at 1 billion or 2 billion, now we're at 28 billion to 1. We're well past the point of proving this. That has become totally irrelevant to us. There's still a lot of people that are doing scientific studies interested in proving it to other scientists. We're interested in making this practical. And even with hit rates of like 57%, you can make this practical. But of course, it's a lot easier at 65%, 75%. Now, what about our membership? In our mission statement, which I didn't just want to read again, but the mission statement includes educating society to the reality of precognition and all of the capabilities of consciousness, the true psi capabilities. We are much greater than we usually give ourselves credit for. And so we are interested in increasing our exposure if in fact we're going to make an impact on society. And that is the primary reason we do bring wagering in. While obviously it's not necessary, and I estimate only maybe a little over 50% of our people actually participate in wagering. Many of them do it just for the joy, if you will, of precognition, self-growth, learning about your own kind of inner self, which is what you're doing when you do precognition. But nevertheless, from the standpoint of educating society, making money talks to society in a way which we believe will be better than science has been able to. Science has already proven this over and over again. And yet it hasn't been integrated into society. We're part of, hopefully, a paradigm shift which will introduce and get capabilities of consciousness, including precognition, integrated into society. That'll be the paradigm shift. So over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, here is the people who have been brought in by year. Last year we brought in 300, the year before 150. You can see a doubling here. In terms of the total number of members, we now have over 600 members. Last year we had 300. Here we had a little over 150. Here it was like 90, 80, whatever. What you see here is just what we had always hoped for, which is an exponential type of growth, which is well known. That's the type of growth you have to have if you want to have an impact. If you have linear growth, which is fine for all those involved, but you're not going to have the same kind of impact as if you have an exponential. So I had one here, I thought, which I must have put away, which showed our expectation for next year, which I hope in fact is a doubling. So I hope by 2017 we will in fact have 1,200 people, all with an app, organized in groups, so you get this feeling of being more personal, just like we did the tables, but nevertheless working precognition and allowing us to make them professionals. But before I talk about professionals, finishing off kind of last year, I do want to bring up Firefly, because that was one of the big projects we had last year. It basically involved groups of our groups who had the objective of making a lot of money in 1 year. A fellow, Carlos, came to us and really made the strong case that if you made the money quickly, because of taxes and things like that, you would get to keep more. And why not? If you could have a hit rate of 60%, and we were just a little below that, and we felt with the motivation we ought to be able to do 60%. Everybody was hyped up for this. We actually set up the equivalent of a investment club where people invested money, and bottom line, it was a disaster. The reason it was a disaster, as I say, the thing that matters is the hit rate, and the hit rate was only 48%. Our approach was to wager very aggressively, and when you wager aggressively, of course, you can make a lot of money if your hit rate is up at 60%. However, when it's down at 48%, it turns out you lose. So this was a disaster. Everybody involved in the investment club lost, frankly, most of their money, like 90% of their money or so. Period. It turned out that was a hard way to learn what I believe is a very important lesson, and which you hear me say a lot, which not only wager wisely, which I've said for a long time, but get rich slowly. And I believe I understand why. Because you can accommodate to the getting rich as opposed to trying to do it too quickly, which introduces a lot of stress. And there's story after story going way back to Russell Targ in the days when he first made a lot of money on Wall Street in the silver market. Then they tried to do it again the second time, and there was a lot of added stress from the investors, and guess what? It was a failure. So this fact of stress is absolutely critical to everything we do. Now, just even without the money, people, and we do emphasize looking at your statistics so that you're not kidding yourself. How are you doing? So we believe that's important. A lot of people feel the stress every time they get a miss and their hit rate goes down. So part of the inner growth being involved in all of this is learning how to handle that stress. And I see that as being very positive because that just makes you stronger as you learn how to do all that. Now, APPI, I don't know, oh, okay, so there it is. This has to do down here with APPI, Applied Precognition Project Institute. So the I is for an actual 501c3 foundation that we set up, whose objective is very clearly stated, and the IRS had no problem with this, is to use precognition and to find, educate, develop, and use in a partnership fashion precoggers and make them professionals. I mean, as soon as you're earning money using your precognition, you're now a professional. And it's APPI's goal to set up as many professionals as possible. And APPI will grow as part of that partnership, and then each of the professionals will make money as time goes on. Now, we just started this last year, so this is part of last year's report. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 partnerships that started last year. Turns out I'm in the process now of starting 3 more. And these are the stats and the hit rate. Now, these are people who have demonstrated that they can get up above 65, 70 kind of percent. They give no guarantee that they're going to do that in the future, but I basically will make a decision based on their track record, based about what I know about them personally, based on whether I feel they can handle getting into money and feeling comfortable with it as the money grows, because that is the intent. And I have conversations with them about that and have to become comfortable. APPI has to become comfortable before we set up a partnership. Now, all these partnerships are 50-50 partnerships, and one is what I call private. It was actually the first one with this model, but it was instituted right before APPI became official. The rest of these, APPI actually puts up the money. It doesn't have to be that way. If someone comes to me and say they want to put up half at a higher level, these all started out as $2,000 partnerships where APPI put up the $2,000. Half of the profits belong to the precogger and half belong to APPI, but the precogger has no risk. So I've really set this up to minimize the stress to the precogger because I think that's best for the partnership, so they have no risk of losing money and they get half of it. And so far this is doing quite well. You can see the return on investments here. And so this is doing quite well, and I see it as something which I'm going to put time into to have it keep growing, because this is the sort of thing that will have an impact on society as more and more professionals actually get out there. Because if you imagine a paradigm shift, guess what? There are going to be a lot of professionals who are going to be working when precognition becomes accepted. I do want to just briefly tell you about a new concept which I put out at the conference, and I think it's appropriate to share it here. And that is this idea of consciousness entanglement energy. And this is directly connected to, as you understand more and more, and I'm still trying to understand it more and more, this idea of entangling this now moment with the future. This is a very creative process for health, wealth, and wisdom. And entanglement energy is like, in a physics sense, there's something called binding energy. Now that's the energy that actually holds the nucleus of atoms together. I mean, this is a very fundamental physical energy. And it's interesting that it has to do with what they call a mass defect in the nucleus itself. If you were to take, nucleus is composed of protons and neutrons. If you were to take those and separate them out to infinity, there would actually be more mass involved in them when they're separate. You now bring them together and entangle them, and some of that mass has turned into this binding energy. So this entanglement is a kind of binding energy connecting things. How about like our remote viewing session and our feedback session? What about binding those together? That's sort of the concept there. I just happened to find when I was writing this, and so I want to read it to you. You all know I love the philosophy of Abraham. Frankly, I don't agree with 100% of what he says, but the stuff I resonate with, I feel comfortable sharing with you. But every time you say, I appreciate that, I really like that, I applaud that, I acknowledge the value in that, every time you do that, you spend some of your energy. And it is the spending of the energy, so this is sort of like the mass, that creates a vacuum, so to speak, or an attraction, so to speak, that draws more and more and more and more. So this is I think what he was talking about, or they were talking about, was this entanglement energy, binding energy kind of idea, and suggesting the way of doing that, getting this attraction, is to appreciate things. You know, we've talked about the emotions, positive emotions involved. So again, purposeful precognition, I think, teaches this in a very direct way. It gets you to really appreciate how you are truly the creator of your life. I mean, you create your remote viewing session, you're there creating your feedback session, and all of this happens in time. And the same thing is true of health. I'm not going to dwell on that now. I've given a workshop on that, and I will be talking more about that as the year goes on, because I think it's so important. And ultimately, it's my feeling that one of the things which is really happening here, and is a part of this precognition consciousness paradigm shift, is we're beginning to see an integration of intuition, of the intuitive, emotional, the non-intellectual with the non-intellectual with the intellectual, and integrating them together into one sort of higher being, more capable being, a being which does all of these psi capabilities rather naturally and integrates it in their lives, and eventually that'll be the way society will change. Okay, let's I don't know if there are any questions on that. Now, maybe I'll just continue to go. But if there are any questions, just turn on your mic and feel free to ask them. Okay. What are APP's plans now for the next year? And what we had just a couple of days ago was a meeting on this subject, and we actually, I gave an overview similar to this, and then we discussed these topics: memberships, new groups, relationships with APPI, AppFest 2017, and expos and volunteers. Now, here's where that membership chart was. So that was basically what we talked about there. We're going to shortly talk about new groups and encourage it in meetings just like this. And that was what we said there, is we need to do more meetings where we can bring people and they can understand the groups that are looking for members, and encourage them to actually start new groups on their own. And I actually gave a workshop in that again a day or two ago. And then we've discussed relationship with APPI. There's going to be more of that next year. We've got more people, the people that can demonstrate that they're able to handle the stress sort of that might be implicit in this. And I'm not even, some people may come already very relaxed with this, but they still have to demonstrate that with statistics, the fact that they in fact can use any one of the protocols and get up to the 70, 65, 70, 75% level consistently. And AppFest is the time when we really do the focus on wagering. We bring people who are kind of already comfortable with their ARVing. These, I would say, are the intermediate to the good people, with the intention of meeting together, talking, learning from each other, and doing lots of predictions in Vegas. So we do lots of sports predictions. It's always a lot of fun, and so far very successful in terms of our hit rates, and most people leave making money. Now, And then, of course, we're all starting to think about and talk about APP 2017. And that's the stage we're at. We're doing more talking, and we'll have some meetings open to everybody to discuss this, as well as kind of, we have an organizing committee. In fact, if you're interested in being on that organizing committee, you can volunteer for that. Last year we had 2 expos, one in Los Angeles, one in San Mateo, right outside of San Francisco. One was called Life Consciousness, but they're the kind of expos where consciousness is one of the themes. Remote viewing was very well received, and we're talking about whether or not we should do that next year. And frankly, we haven't made any real decisions because we do not have a lead person on this. These things take time, and I just don't feel like I've got the time to be the lead on this. So this will happen if we can get others who will volunteer. So this was the plot that talked about members, and to get up to something like 1,200 by the end of 2017. And one of the good reasons for that is, again, impact with society and to feed APPI. Now here's where we are in terms of organization and volunteers up to now. Our membership and my admin assistant is Julie Beeman. Right now she is totally indispensable. I don't know if Julie's here. But we have webmasters. Teresa is the head webmaster, and Shane is working very closely with her. Shane has already made a tremendous impact in that he has put up all of the webinar information on YouTube onto our website. So you can find all of those on our website if you simply, you must be a member. In fact, I think it's probably worth showing that. Wait, let me open up a browser. I know I have a browser here somewhere. So if you go under membership, and then you need to be a paid member, and I hope more and more you will be paid members, and once you're a paid member, you know what your password is, and then virtually all of them are here. So that's how easy it is. And not only do you get the ones from the last conference workshop, from all the previous ones, and then you also get all of the talk with, which have all these great people who are coming up: Ulysses, Dale Graff Clearman, Steve Browdy, and I just signed up Marilyn Schlitz. So she's going to do a talk with the week after here, and we've already had a bunch of good people. All of these are available to paid members, so they're all under that paid membership place. Okay, so that's a pitch for that. That's the primary way we're getting our funding to keep things going. So your support, of course, is encouraged. And then our connections with social media, you know, we record as much as we can. We do all these free webinars. They're out there in lots of places. But we also have Facebook connections and connections with other websites, TKR, 1,000 Roads, which is a big remote viewing site, and Alexis and John keep our connections with them. But we're still looking for leads with what I call branding, interviews, big personalities. Last year, we got onto Coast and Coast for the first time, and that was a big contributor to getting the 300 people, probably 150 to 200 of the people came through Coast to Coast, or, you know, from there. I also did some other interviews, but that was clearly the biggest. And we're looking for maybe a big personality for APP 2017. Some people have suggested Greg Braden, who's very well known. So if somebody wants to take that on, we're looking for a volunteer there. Um, uh, and that would be connected for APP in general, but also for APP 2017. We already have people here, but we're looking for more volunteers. As I said, App Fest, if somebody wants to get into that, please, let me know. And we're going to definitely have that, but we could certainly use some more specific help on that, as well as the expos. We've started a target pool group already, but if you're interested in even learning about that and participating in choosing and pairing good targets, just contact me. Okay, now let's talk about the open precog groups and being up to 600 members with this idea of wanting to form in groups for lots of reasons, social, plus turns out being a group manager is a very valuable experience. And it teaches you by looking at other people's work so much. All aspects of this ARV work just teaches you something, elevates you. The remote viewing, the judging, the feedback sessions, being a group manager, and in fact even the wagering. All of this, if done wisely, I think enhances you. These are the groups which I know of right now and who responded to my emails that are open. You can see a lot of them are we groups. And the first one, which I think is worth discussing, but he's looking for more people, is Scott. And as a group manager, in terms of how he works, he's got a great hit rate, as you saw. So Scott, how about if I turn it over to you and you just say a few words about your approach, and you can see his email here, so you'll be able to contact him. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Oh,
Sure.
you may not have anything to present, so maybe just...
No, I do have a PowerPoint from
terrific, terrific.
I could go through real fast.
Yep, there you go.
All right. So this is just the one from the seminar, which I'm going to go through really fast.
Okay.
But we're doing sports predictions pretty much every week, every Sunday. We mostly do over under. I've been managing the group since 2014. They wrote an article about us in the 8 Martinis magazine. And we're up to 102 trials since 2014. The hit rate is 73.5% over that longer period, over 2 years. And we're using the Entanglements protocol, although it's flexible. So most people are self-judging, although I can judge your transcripts. Typically, viewers are if you're self-judging, you're looking at both the winning and the losing target. Although we're flexible on that, also we can do classic binary just as easily, where you only look at the winning target. Most viewers turning in 2 transcripts, although we can handle turning in 1 transcript also. And so with the self-judging, there's usually, the we protocol, you come up with 4 scores, 2 transcripts against 2 images. But we could just do 2 classic binary. We're using the SRI targ scale, 0 to 7. The carve is a lot larger than we are, but in the past, WW Chicken Dinner was one of the larger groups. We've never closed, we've never limited it to the number of people, so it's currently open Some groups limit it to 6 or 10 people, but we pretty much take everybody, beginners and advanced. We were an in-person group before it started, so we got kind of a kickstart at the beginning of our group because we were already meeting and doing sports predictions among our in-person class here in Los Angeles. And we meet twice a month on that. So if you're near Los Angeles and you want training, you can train with the guy who trained me. All right. So we have all the advantages of using the stuff that Marty wrote, the image library, managing the groups. And if you want to become a group manager, we can teach you how to use this software. I jumped into it because I knew it would save me a lot of time over the way I was doing it with pictures and envelopes and everything with just the in-person group. So Marty's software saved me a lot of time. And it stores a lot of stats. And that's a big advantage to the viewer, and it's a big advantage to the group manager. So viewers get individual hit rate charts, so they can see how they're progressing. They can see their hits versus misses. They can get a graph that shows how fast their hit rate is climbing and what they need to do to adjust. And they can see a whole history of everything they did in that over the course of years and years. And we don't know exactly why WW Chicken Dinner has been so successful, but I think I like to call it a group effect. So I think in our group anyways, having more transcripts to work with means that if one viewer is having a bad day, another viewer can have a good day and kind of counteract that. And I like the idea of having new talent come in every time. So it's very common that after we meet in Vegas, I'll pick up 1 or 2 new members that just go on a winning streak of 8 straight, or 8 out of 10, or 80% over the next 30 sessions or so. So that can help the group with its hit rate. And like I said, we're flexible. If you want to do classic binary, if you want me to do individual judging instead of you doing self-judging, pretty much the software is set up for me or any other group manager to accommodate the Wii protocol or versions of it or classic binary or some hybrid mix. So we were lucky that we started with an in-person group that got us started on a roll. It's useful as a group manager to be able to see the history of every viewer. So while I'm judging transcripts, I can see all their past transcripts, and I can get an idea for if they draw this on the page, then this is what they mean. These are the kind of targets they specialize in. These are the type of gestalts that viewer has. So it's a big advantage to have all that history for that viewer right there at my fingertips. So the group focuses on sports. I think it's good, especially good for beginners. We know when to pass. We've done a lot of passing, especially this year. But I would rather have a pass than a miss. I'm not thrilled on passing because I know everybody works really hard on their transcripts, and I work really hard judging them. But I think if you're not, for the most part, passing helps your hit rate go up. And then we've used a lot of clay. And so if you're interested in using clay, we have webinars on that. So I'm one of the open groups. You're welcome to join my group. You showed the email address there. So there's like the 2 biggest worries that I get. People are worried that they're going to mess up my group by turning in transcripts or something. But I encourage you to join anyways. I'm not so worried about new members messing up the group. Like I said, there's always more experienced members, or there's always other members to step in and contribute something good. And we've handled beginners before, and we can get them up to speed. The second biggest worry I didn't write down here, but that's usually how can I commit to doing 1 transcript or 2 transcripts a week. And my answer to that is you don't have to do 2 transcripts a week. It's important for you to do these sessions, when you want to and not when you have to. So you can design your own program. If you're traveling a lot, I would still encourage you to do sessions, whether that's once a month or once a quarter. It'll be good for your growth the more practice you get. And so if you can do it every week, we're there to accommodate that. But if you're really busy in your other life and you only have so much time to spend on this, then we can accommodate that also. So whatever your experience is, we can factor it into the group, and you won't mess up the group. So I encourage you to just start practicing. Join my group, join one of these other groups, form your own group. There's a huge support network here to help viewers and group managers be successful. And that was pretty much my presentation. I only have 2 clay examples here, so if you want to see how remote viewing with your hands instead of drawing sketches, or in addition to drawing sketches, then you see an example of a hand grenade here. That was a success. That led to a hit. And lastly, here's one I did. Here's a yoga girl, and when I was with this clay, it just wanted to bend over and over and over. So my hands are telling me pretty much what the target was. So that's it. That's my presentation on WW Chicken Dinner. I'm available for questions, as is Marty. So if anyone wants to unmute themselves or put a question in the chat window, we can do that.
Yep. Okay. Oh, go ahead. John, you have a question? I just see you unmuted yourself. Okay. Thank you, Scott. And let me just say, I'm going to give a link later, which I think includes Scott's webinar. He gave a full webinar on working with clay. So you can look at that if you're interested in doing clay. So, okay, Scott, thank you.
Sure. John, did you have a question? I hear you.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to turn my mic on. I was wondering when you guys meet in LA. I'm not exactly close, but I'm not.
Wait, we're not hearing you clearly.
John, why don't you type your question in the chat window there, because you got some background noise there. When and where do we meet in Los Angeles? We meet in El Segundo, like one exit south from LAX, the airport. It's pretty much the 4th Saturday of every month. And we also meet in Pasadena in the 2nd Saturday of every month. So generally twice a month. So we can accommodate people from north of LA and south of LA. That's when we meet. And we have good speakers there, including John Orlovsky, who spoke at APP2016, and we have some crossover members. We have members of APP that come to our in-person class, and we have members from our in-person class that join APP. So there's a nice crossbreeding there, and it's nice to get some trainings. We don't do a whole lot of training. We accept people from people who've been trained in app. We accept people who've been trained from all sorts of teachers, and I know I'm judging transcripts of people who've been trained by in England and all sorts of countries around the world, and this master in the U.S. and that master in the U.S. So we have a lot of different styles inside of app. We don't do a whole lot of training, so if you want in-person training and you're near LA, you can come to our class. Looks like there's a question. I can get you the information, John. Just write me. I'll put my email address here again. So there's my email address, leolaugh@hotmail.com.
Gmail.
Gmail. Yeah, that one's Gmail.
Okay. Why don't I, any other questions, comments? Thank you, Scott. And I hope people will take you on your offer. Let me say, one of the things which app and the people in app feel very comfortable doing is moving between groups. Sometimes the change itself, somebody feels they need it. I don't think any of the group managers take movement personal in any way, so you need to really feel if right now moving to any of the groups you're seeing here makes sense to you, then you should do it. Okay, so I'm going to just make myself presenter just simply so we can talk about the next person. Okay, the next one, Teresa, she also uses we, but what is quite different about her is that her focus is on horse racing. So Teresa, do you want the screen? You just want to talk a little bit about your group? What would you like to do?
Talk a little bit. I think I need to get a PowerPoint together, but I haven't got it now. So much of what Scott was saying applies to us since we are a we group. So we have the same flexibilities, whether we can take 2 transcripts or 1. We can do self-judging, or I can do the judging. Most of our people are doing self-judging right now. We are doing the horse racing, and the way that we're doing the horse racing in we is kind of based on Scott's inspiration. We were trying to figure out a way to, as you can imagine, it's hard to figure out how to do a horse race when you only have a binary choice. And Scott had said, if you look at, if you're looking at sports teams and you're looking at their history and stuff like that, then you can pick a team that's going to give you the best chance of getting a hit. It's not exactly what he said, so you can correct on that, but when you're looking at horse racing, the way that we interpreted that was if you look at the odds favorite horse, then you're probably going to be more likely to end up with a winner. And so that's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to look at the odds favorite horse in a race and predict whether or not that horse will finish in the money, win, place, or show. So that's the theory behind what we're doing. We've got a fairly small group. We've got about a dozen people, and in any given week, only about 3 or 4 are usually actually sending in a prediction. So we could definitely use some more people putting in predictions every week, because I think that would really help our hit rate a lot, if we had more people involved. Other than that, we do have another little side kind of prediction that I started a few weeks ago, where we are doing a color prediction. And I send that out separately. Excuse my phone. I send that out separately, and it's optional. You can do it or not, and you just basically think about, what color is associated with that horse's saddle blanket. And it's a real quick thing. You just pick it out of a drop-down list and send it in, and we've had pretty good luck with that. So I haven't done the statistics on it yet, but that's just kind of a fun thing that we're doing, and it's optional, of course. But so those are a couple of the things that we're doing. We basically, as far as the we prediction for first group, I send that out usually on Thursday or Friday, and the race is actually on Monday. And the predictions are due on Sunday morning. And the idea behind that is to give people as much time as possible to, actually place a bet if they want to. So usually by by noon or so on Sunday, you'll have the prediction. And that is pretty much it. Of course, I'm open. If y'all have any questions about what I've said or any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, you can turn on your mic if you have a mic, or put comment in the chat box. Okay. Okay. And, you know, a lot of people who work, etc., look at this on the video when we post the video. And of course, anybody interested in the horse race aspect of this using we can contact Teresa right there. Now, Tom is the next one, and I don't think he is here, but he focuses on sports. He uses we. His group is a bit smaller than WWC Dinner and Carve, which is my sports group. At some point in time, hopefully he'll be able to say a little bit more maybe about what makes his unique, but you may very well just simply want to get involved with Tom directly. Here's his email address. Now, I use we as well. There are, if you remember that list, quite a few non-we groups as well, but a lot of them tend to have been generated, and they keep their membership to the few people, and then they keep their stats on their own, but they are required to keep stats. We does the stats automatically. That's why there are so many we groups. It does make life easier. And I happen to have the Carve group, which is where we put the beginners and the newbies who are just learning about app, learning about the potential. From then, they might move to other groups. But also there are some other people who have been around for quite a while who are in Carve, who appreciate the fact that this really is a personal effort. Now, I have two other groups, a financial group and an Omega group, both of which are financial, which are both doing Forex now. I see no difference between those, but some people's mindset is such that they do. And, you know, your belief system, your mindset is an important part of how you perform. But to the extent that you're interested in actually working with financials so that you can wager on Forex, and then often I might put out some information on Forex. I've got lots of webinars out there on Forex, and I you know, just it's natural to give more information on Forex when you're working with it based on what happened that day. So I have three, plus I'm working the APPI people. So I would say one of the differences with my groups versus these groups is that I tend to put out my information in lots of webinars. I'm even going to give you a place you can see these past webinars, and then answer questions. I am an email person. Anybody that asks a question, you know, based on the work they do, based on looking at the webinars, I always respond. I respond to every single email I get. But I don't think I am as personal, say, as Scott or Teresa or Tom. But I'm as personal as I can be, people. What can I tell you? Anyway, that's the situation with me. And I will continue to educate through the webinars because they, impact a lot of people, and I am working on other ways. I do look at the transcripts. I think these people look at each and every one. I tend to look at the ones that are ranked high, and so part of what I do is teach people how to do the judging so that their rankings are reasonable. But I'm also working on an automated approach of making a group prediction. And so far, that has not been as successful as I would like. So that's the status of what I'm doing. I guess one last emphasis here, as you see, what I do always promote is personal growth. And that's why I encourage personal questions about what's going on with you, mostly via email. Every now and then, we might do a telephone call, but mostly just through email, where a person can put a well thought out email together and then I put a well thought out answer together. Okay, one other person, Igor, who on the app, any questions or anything on that before I move forward? These are the only groups now that are focusing on financial besides the APPI groups. And I do have some APPI people actually in these two groups. Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, ARV Studio is a piece of software that Igor introduced within the last several weeks, I think. He's written about it, given you an opportunity to look at it. It's actually, I think you have to pay for it now. It's not particularly expensive, but I guess anyway, that's part of it. And he is encouraging people. He would like just because he has his own group that or two that are closed, he would like to work with someone new who will be a GM. And he sent me this email. I'd like to see someone who would want to be a group manager of a new ARV group with new members using my ARV Studio program. It would be great to see how they would perform and how GM would feel using ARV Studio. I can't attend the webinar, but if you want, maybe you can ask attendees about this. And I would coach one-on-one new GM to get started. So there's Igor's email address, and his software is, I'd say, very classical ARV. He has got his own target pool, and you just contact him. If you do a search through your app emails on ARV Studio, you'll be able to get the information that he's put out already. But in addition, he welcomes you to contact him directly.
I just mentioned one more thing. I was looking at his software is really very, very interesting. And one of the things it does have some ability to do sensory, so it has some sensory cues that you can incorporate if you have a group that wants to do that. So it might be worth a look, especially if you got a PC. It is PC based.
Oh, okay. Oh, it won't work on a Mac yet?
Not yet.
Yeah,
not yet, because I was interested in trying it out, but I'm Mac oriented right now.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you for that. And okay, any other questions on that? So any of these groups can lead to you becoming a professional precogger with a relationship with APPI. So that's basically I think what I need to say about that. Now, I have been asked several times, and I said I would do it at this meeting, to try to make clear within we, as you see, there are a lot of we groups, and I am really encouraging new people to set up groups, and we is one of the possibilities that I give one-on-one training with that, and I have a webinar already that's online that you can look at on how to become a group manager. But people don't quite understand what's been alluded to here a couple of times, that with we, you have a choice to do 2 coordinates or 1 coordinate. The 1 coordinate approach is classical ARV, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the 2 coordinate approach, but it's basically 2 coordinates with a twist. So this is one of the pages as a group manager you would send off to all of the members in your group. So I, in this case, was pretending I was in the webinar workshop group. Okay, so you can see I clicked that. These are all the current we groups. And I would put in an email here, my email, and then I could choose to do 2 coordinates or 1 coordinate. So that's when Scott and Teresa both alluded to that, and that's easy as a user to choose right here. So as long as your protocol said that, now some groups say always use 1, other groups might say always use 2. Most groups allow you to do either, you know, your choice. And then after you do that, if you had chosen 1 coordinate, up comes your queue. Guess what? 1 coordinate. Here is where you would upload. Almost everybody already knows how to use a smartphone or a scanner to get their transcript onto their computer. Either if it's 1 page, a photograph, if it's more than 1 page, people have used Word or a PDF file, and then you browse for it, put it in here, and click submit. And that's what goes to the group manager. So the group manager has your transcript. Now, if there are 2 coordinates and you had clicked the radio box for 2 coordinates, this is what you would see. You would get your 2 coordinates here, and you would browse for each of your transcripts. They would show up here and here. You click submit. Both of those transcripts then go to the group manager, and the group manager then has access to not only your transcripts, but you then, and I just didn't show it here, you know, this is not a whole thing on we so much as showing you 2 transcripts, but we then will ask you for your coordinates, which go, not your coordinates, I'm sorry, we'll ask you for your confidence rankings using that TARG SRI 0 to 7 confidence scale, and that also goes to the group manager. So the group manager basically gets your, in this case, 2 transcripts or 1 transcript, your confidence rankings, and the comments that you put when you put in your confidence rankings. So he has a lot of information from you personally to use in making the group prediction. Now, here is the twist in we. It's rather normal with 1 coordinate to have a transcript, okay, and you use that transcript against 2 possible targets. photo site A is one possible target, photo site B is the other possible target. If you're sitting here as a judge and I see a transcript like this, and this of course is just an example, so your coordinate is associated with this transcript at first, but it's especially associated with your feedback photo site target. That's what precognition is all about. So you're sitting here as a judge and you say, okay, I'm first going to look at this transcript and I'm going to look at photo site A. No, I don't see people. I don't see vegetation. Maybe this round shape, but I would give this a low confidence ranking score, maybe 1, something like that. I now look at this one. Oh, I see people, I see vegetation. Oh, look, I even see a tree. I see the people here, maybe not the same amount, but hey, hot. It's obvious that you would take the point of view that you would give this a high confidence ranking, 5, 6, maybe you wish you had more information, but everything here is right on. High confidence ranking. And you would say, well, this viewer made good contact with his feedback photo site target, and that's why this is so good. So you as a judge have every reason to give this a very high, well, you probably, the viewer would have given it a high score. You would confirm that because you get to see this and that. The viewer did not see this unless it was self-judging. And that's the other thing. You have an opportunity to self-judge or not simply by sending the transcript to an independent judge, or you've got it yourself. I mean, it turns out to be that simple. So where's the twist? The twist is that before we used to ask viewers to take on the same event 2 ways, but we would give them 2 coordinates, but each of those coordinates would have 2 photo sites associated with it. So the second coordinate would have a different set of 2 pictures, but each would be associated with red or black in the case of roulette, or over or under. This was just came from a roulette example. But the point is they would be 2 different pictures. In we use the same pictures. We happen to think that's pretty significant because even in the independent judge's case, we see this phenomenon called displacement, where a viewer who never sees the other picture might, for whatever reason, describe this one, and let's say this one turns out to be a miss, but gives a good indication of a circle, draws triangles, says structure, silver, and that person would never see this. It shows that the subconscious, the higher self, what's ever doing this, we use the word subconscious, has access to both of these pictures, always. And it seems like the subconscious is curious because there's always this phenomenon of bleed through where we seem to get partial information from both pictures, etc., etc. We says, hey, you as a viewer know you're going to see both pictures, yes, but it's your job to associate coordinate 1, and let's say this was coordinate 1, with the correct one, as it actually turns out. So black 1 in this example, and in coordinate 2, you have a second transcript, and in that transcript, we hope that you would do silver, triangles, all of that kind of stuff. So the second transcript would match this target. So that's the twist. Both of these are actually targets. What you're doing as a viewer is lining up the appropriate coordinate with the appropriate target. So the targets are blind to you, associated with each of the two possible outcomes. So I don't know if that's real clear. I've got a lot of webinars out there where I've discussed it and shown it, but that's the twist in we. This allows you two chances to get two good transcripts, but if you choose to only do one, then it's classical and you'll only get one feedback. If you do two coordinates, you will get two feedbacks and you will see clearly one coordinate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be associated with this picture at feedback, so that's very clear. Now that's assuming black wins. But then you will get your second transcript, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 say, will be clearly associated with this. So you have two separate feedbacks for each of your two coordinates. Questions, comments on that? There are many we and ARV videos here. In fact, let me put that. Let me put this in the, they're also on our channel. We have videos on the app. Oop. Okay. What happened there? Let's try that again. I see. It was just too big. Okay. Let's see how I can make that smaller. As soon as you say, okay, both photos, very good. Okay, let me get this small enough so I can copy it to the chat box, and then I'll answer the question. Oops, it still wants to be big. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so if you click on that, that's the app, Marty, I guess, YouTube channel. But as I said, we also have a lot of other stuff up on our on the app top bar. There are two places we have lots of videos. And I will be giving more of these. Okay, so John, you typed in there, as soon as you said both photos are targets, we are just matching up the correct numbers. Oh, you got it. Okay, super. Super, thank you. We normally refer to them as photo sites and not targets until after the feedback. That's exactly right, because they are photo sites until you know the outcome, and then they become targets associated with the associated coordinate. Okay, good. Thank you, John, and I hope that helps others as well. Other questions, comments? And as I've indicated to you, I am an email person. I know email is now been replaced more and more by texting. Apparently the current generation texts like crazy, but I'm email. I like emails to be, you know, people get to put down a thought, you know, hopefully, you know, spend just enough time to have it be clear, and then I respond. So I really am an email person, and you can always feel free to contact me directly. Okay. Then, if there are no more questions or comments, you guys can go on, and let's now do what we always have on these Anything app, which are, quote, other. Anything that's on your mind, any other topic.
Marty, could I mention a training class we're having in St. Louis?
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
For those of y'all who were involved with the conference, Angela Smith was there, and she did one of the webinars that you can look at, but she's going to be coming to St. Louis in August. And it's going to be like a 3-day class. It's going to be an intro to CRV, ERV, and applications. And really excited about having her here. I think it's the first time that we've had somebody here doing that kind of training, and to have her here is just going to be really wonderful. And she's going to start it off. We've got a little group here called Mystic Salon. She's going to start it off with a spoon bending party there the night before the class starts. So that is going to be, I think, the 26th through the 28th of August, with the spoon bending party on the 25th. So I hope that some of you, the information's out there on the websites and stuff like that, or you can contact me directly.
Okay, very good. Okay. I guess some of you cannot see the chat box or cannot respond to it. So I was asked to send this link. So I will do that. In fact, I'll be able to find your email, Lori, and I will do that.
Maybe you could go in the discussion group too.
Yeah, okay. Good, okay, and Teresa put, yeah, okay, so maybe I will do that. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Maybe I'll just, let me take, yeah. Yeah, and Teresa, no, that's great. You know, we are not like private about just stuff for us. As long as it's related to precognition, capabilities, advanced capabilities of consciousness, we want people to know about it. So announcements like this are more than appropriate. They're encouraged.
I would just say too that some people are joining 2 or 3 groups. So they're doing transcripts for multiple groups in one week. And we're switched back and forth between groups, so we just want you to get lots of practice, and we don't really care where you get it.
I think that's an excellent observation, and that's true. And maybe I'll just add to that. Joe McMonagle does 6 remote viewing sessions per week, and he basically believes, even for himself, it's like a use it or lose it. And he thinks it's really good. You know, it's the practice, 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 but then you get to practice like a doctor or a shaman. So that sort of thing. Lori is asking, best to do 1 RV session a day. I don't know if that's true or not. I think if they're the real long ones, you know, where you do 20, 30 pages, that's probably true. When you do ARV, I don't think that is true. I think you need to take a reasonable break just so it's very clear to your subconscious that it's a brand new session, you know, and you do a cool down, having it associated with the new one. But yeah.
And then there are people who are doing so they're turning in 2 transcripts a week, and they do 1 transcript one day and 1 the next.
That's
so
exactly right.
Easy to do.
Right. Yeah, and we do.
So it may not be obvious from the website, but you can take a long break in between transcripts if you want to. Some people do a 20-minute break. Some people do a 24-hour break.
Right. We actually encourage at least an hour break to separate them, but that's only to get it clear that there's separation. Some people feel they can do a separation just by getting up, having a cup of coffee, and coming back, you know. So it's very individual, and it's also what you believe. If you believe you should only do 1 a day because somebody told you that and it resonated with you, until you change your belief system, I think it's very important to be consistent with your belief system. So I think that's more important than sort of the event itself, if you will.
You guys don't find it difficult to take on two targets? Let's say you have one target and you're taking on a second target before you receive feedback on the first target. I tend to get displacement when I do that. You guys don't? I mean, is that a belief system, or is that just, you know, how one of the quirks of it?
In my opinion, it's a belief system, and it's one which has been put out there by some people. I don't know where it started. Somebody probably got displaced. In my opinion, someone got a displacement. Hey, displacement happens. It happens when you only do one session in a week. It happens, okay? We don't understand why. I guess in a way I do, because the consciousness peaks. The subconscious has access to everything. And then it happened, and that was the reason they said it, just like they give reasons about it being bad targets and all that. It's a miss. But if you do believe that, I think you should honor it. However, I also believe if it limits you, it might be something you might want to work through by not letting it limit you. But that's very personal, and that's a decision that has to be made at the personal level.
And you can also say that you're training your subconscious that this target goes with this feedback event goes with this coordinate. And as long as you're very clear about saying this one goes with this one and this one goes with this one, then they can overlap. You can train your subconscious to do that.
Okay. On ARV, using we.
What sort of protocol is the APPI group using? Is it we?
Yeah. That just happens to be why, but some of it is self-judging. All of it are two transcripts, which shows that, you know, they get them both back at the same time. But it doesn't have to be. It just happens to be those are the ones I have the most data for that are doing well. If you were in another group using something besides we, and you had a good approach, I would be happy to do that. Oh, in fact, there was one exception. We had a group that was doing it totally on their own in APPI, a viewer, a separate judge. All they would give me is the prediction. I would wager on it, and that was it. And they were doing it total. I don't even know what they were doing. All I was the wagerer for them as an APPI group. And that worked out very well, as a matter of fact. Turned out they both left because they were doing other things, but that worked out very well. Using we and other protocols. Okay.
You said you were tracking statistics for the APPI, or at least to include those members. What sort of sample size are you looking at for that?
Let me. I'm sorry. Just give me a minute, and then I can send this and look at the video tabs on HTTP : Okay. Precognition. I don't know. I like that. Okay. I'm sorry. Ask your question again.
I was asking about, you mentioned that you want to see members with around 65% and up hit rate to join APPI, but my question was what sort of sample rate were you looking at? Is it like 100 sessions or?
25. In other words, if you look at some of the plots that we typically, in fact, I have some here. Or I thought I had some here. Looks like, no, it looks like I took them away. Oh wait, maybe I have some here. Did I use any here? Here. So typically, and this is, does this automatically for you. There's a red curve which is cumulative since the beginning. Okay, so 60%, 60%. This is somebody who's in app.
Can you zoom in on that, Marty?
Oh.
Can you run PowerPoint and then?
Yeah. No, here I can do it. I'm trying with my fingers here. Okay. Is that big enough? Can you now see this one here?
It's better. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can make it even bigger. Oh. It's obviously hard to get this just right. The point is I have plots. I made it too big, sorry. Where were these? There it is. Okay, let me just try slowly. Do it this way. And this way. Okay, so this is hit rate on the left, and on the right, session number. The red curve, and remember these are the standard plots that come out for each individual. The red curve is the cumulative curve. So over 80 plus sessions, this person is at 62%, say. The blue is the last 10 non-pass sessions averaged. So you can see this always jumps up to the 10 level. So here it was up at 80%, here it was down to 50. Here they were at 80, okay, last 10. And I consider the most significant one to be the green one. And so this person was over 70%, 65, 70%. I think I brought this person into app in here someplace. And this is their hit rate after that. It turns out they get a personal hit rate, but I make judgments on how much to wager and everything, and this person happens to be doing quite well. But nevertheless, the point here is I usually wait until I have 25 until I will consider bringing the person in. And I also encourage the people, if sometimes I don't see it, to contact, APPI, to contact me, and we'll talk. And we actually have a contract. It's a simple one-page contract, but it simply defines and makes it rather formal that the profits are being shared, and that they have no risk if that's the if app puts up their money. Okay, so I have had some cases where I've known people from a long time and sort of know already that they're good viewers, and I will sometimes bring people in before 25. If somebody has, well, in fact, here, let me show you some other examples. Someone comes to me and I see something like this, it doesn't have to be 25. So you understand the point. I just need to feel comfortable with the person and the person's track record. I think there was another one here too. Anyway, so you get the point, right? Other questions, comments? Pat, I tend to do 4 to 6 sessions in a row. Okay. That's good. The first one or two act as warm-ups. See, everybody, I mean, I think it's such an important point to get here is that everyone is different. Hey, look, I went through a stage, God, I can't believe how many years ago it was, where I took classes, I was reading everything and going at it from the point of view that there's a right way to do it. You know, I took Lynn Buchanan's beginning and intermediate course. I read everything I could get a hold of. And people will tell you you should do it this way and you should do it this way. And they all say it with like an authority that this is the, not all of them will say the only way, but they'll sort of give you the impression that their way is the best way. I hate to say this, but a little bit like religion, right? This is the right one, even though there are thousands of them out there and they can't all be right. What I've come to believe is it's all personal. And you have to make it right for you. Now you should listen and talk and take all of this stuff in, but then you have to take responsibility for doing what feels right to you. That's the secret, in my opinion. Okay, other questions, comments?
I would just add that there's people inside of WW Chicken Dinner that are doing really short sessions. You know, they can rattle off 2 sessions in 15-20 minutes, and they have high hit rates.
Right.
And then there's people turning in 9-page transcripts, more CRV style, stages 1 through 7, and for them they may wait a day or they may wait an hour, but we get all types, and I don't mind long transcripts. Some people prefer shorter ones. I like all different styles. Some of our best people came from a CRV background. They want to turn in 9-page transcripts or 13-page transcripts. That's fine. Or we get a lot of half-page transcripts too. So as long as you're getting hit rates and you're connecting to the target, then that's the important thing.
What's interesting about that is because I see some people who do that as well, and they're doing it in a way which is quite balanced in their minds and even my mind, and that is if you're interested in doing those long transcripts for other purposes, CRVers get involved in finding missing people or looking for a location where there's gold or whatever, they can use ARV with these long sessions to stay tuned. So they get to do ARV, they get to do that kind of prediction, and they're still using their CRV skills, getting feedback, which is, one of the things which helps you just get better.
That was something that sort of struck me when I joined APP or started doing ARV. Anyways, I trained in CRV, and I think the whole idea behind those long transcripts is to they're trying to control the aperture, let it open very slowly. Whereas with some of these, especially the webinar ones, but some of these ARV sessions, they do them real fast, and there's no attempt to control like the aperture per se. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yep, there are a lot of different approaches, right? And different people kind of resonate, get to different ways of doing it. And I really believe this idea of being true to your own belief system and allowing yourself to modify your belief system and just growing kind of with it as you do more and more of these. And there's a discipline involved. It's amazing how you will believe something and not do it. I can't be the only one who's experienced that over and over again. And so one of the things that is part of the training is like self-discipline, taking self-responsibility, not blaming when you get a miss, trying to learn from it. Anyway, you're hearing my belief system, but I'll share that with you, and maybe it'll resonate with some of you, and maybe it won't. But the general idea of being aware of your own belief system and being consistent with it, I think you would agree that makes sense.
So our in-person classes at near LAX, they're almost all about CRV. So even beginners are doing stages 1 through 3, 1 or 2 page transcripts, and the advanced students are doing stages 1 through 7. So several page transcripts, including summary and clay work and all sorts of things. And a lot of those people, even though they had no quote-unquote ARV training, just jump right into APP, or they jump into my group, and they do just fine. And then there are people who normally do 9-page transcripts, and when they get into ARV, they realize, okay, it's possible to do shorter transcripts for ARV, because you really don't have to. We're not describing a military target. This is not a military intelligence exercise. I need to chew just enough on this piece of paper to distinguish between this target and that one, and that can be done very shortly. And there's people who can distinguish between the two targets just in literally 6 seconds and drawing an ideogram. And if you go to some of these trainings we have, or if you go to IRVA, there's people training you how to do really quick sessions and hopefully get accurate results. So I encourage you to try all those things. And if doing shorter sessions means it's easier for you to do ARV, or you can do faster sessions, then I encourage you to try it. I mean, one of the reasons I jumped into remote viewing at all is because I wanted to be able to make better decisions in my life. And one of the reasons I became a group manager is because I wanted to learn better judgment in my life and how to make decisions, whether I'm under stress or not, or how to bring my intuition into my decision making. And I met my goals. It didn't work out exactly like I wanted, but I think I'm better at making decisions than I was before I was doing RV. So I'm interested in everything on that scale. I'm interested in making quick decisions, and also putting a lot of effort into making a more detailed decision. And as a group manager, I like lots of corroborating data. So if someone has a 9-page transcript and then that gives me a lot of stuff to just say, okay, this matches this and this matches this, and it wasn't just a fluke that he got that one thing right. So the long ones don't bother me. The short ones are fine as long as they have a good hit rate, and as long as I can distinguish between the two targets. So there's a whole range in there, and it's all related to how you want to grow and what you want to use RV for. And I found APP just a wonderful place to practice all that stuff. There's so many people training out there, and not enough people focusing on the practicality, in my opinion. And I think this is why. Yeah, John?
Oh, I was going to say that's sort of the category I fell into. I trained years ago, and until we have some group like this, there's really I really didn't have much reason to practice. I trained initially as a college project years ago, and for psychology, and then I haven't really practiced. So I'm out of practice, and this is fantastic, being able to have a purpose, and a group. So yeah, getting back into it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, the best part about ARV for me was just I could actually tell that what I did worked. Because I could do a CRV session and I say, okay, I think I connected. That's all well and good, but where are the statistics piling up? You know, where's the numbers quantifying how well I did? And that's what you get with APP. You get a hit rate chart. You get to see that your prediction matched the sports prediction or the currency market movement. So if you see you're predicting real things in the real world, then that's a big confidence booster, and you can really tell what's going on with that. And this is one reason why APP is growing and why we can fill rooms with 70, 80 people. It's because people get immediate feedback and practical application out of it.
Okay, comments, questions? Okay. So why don't we end it here? And, I've left this on last so you can make contacts with the group managers. And I thank you all for coming, and keep precogging.